Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Inspired by Christ podcast. I'm your host, Kourtney Goff. Man, we got another great episode today. Please do me a favor, make sure that you like and subscribe. It's gonna be another great one. Got a good friend of mine on the pod today, man. Looking forward to this conversation. A brother by the name of Aaron Nobles, a follower of Christ, a personal development coach, a boxing coach. Also, on top of that, as a husband and a father of six, so just so many different things. And I know he left a little few things off the list that I already know that he's doing, but just want to make sure we give him a warm welcome, man. So welcome to the pod, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm blessed, and I'm glad that I'm able to be on here with you. So I appreciate you having me on here as a guest.
Man, I had to return the favor, man, because look, Aaron had me on this podcast. Man, that was probably like a couple years ago. And
Yeah.
we had great conversation on there, and like the spirit passed me. And I'm like, yo, let me hit up Aaron, see if you want to get on. So I know we're gonna have a dynamic conversation today, just knowing how you are in Christ and me as well. We got a lot to talk about, but I do want to, before we get into that, just talking about even how we met and like how God even just allowed us to connect. And I'll just give a quick little background of that. And I just want you to kind of give your chime in after that. But to me, this is just how God works. Like I think it was like a random day, like probably 2 years, 2+ years ago. I'm going to take my daughters to go to a doctor's appointment. We end up going to a new location. So this is all brand new that day. We went to a new location. In the process of us going in, this guy is walking out, and I forget his name, but he worked for FCA, the fellow Christian athletes organization. So as I'm coming out, he like, man, you play sports, man, you play sports. So we started talking about football, basketball. We end up exchanging information. I'm telling him I do stuff in the youth and stuff for Christ. And then he like, man, I got somebody that I want you to meet. So he connects me with Aaron. And now I don't even talk to that guy no more, but he connected me with Aaron. Now me and Aaron, like we cool, like we follow each other on social media and stuff like that. But now how we've been able to sharpen each other's swords. So I just was saying that to give a little bit of background, because you just never know how God gonna bring people into your life to help you out. Like we never met in person, but we know each other virtually, and we got a brotherhood. So I just wanted to get that backdrop for the people. And then also from your perspective, I don't know if you got anything from that, but it just, to me, how God worked to just align things up like that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. A guy at my church, his name is Ryan,
Yeah.
and me and him interact. We both have youth inside the youth program at church, and he was like, "Oh, I met a guy that you might be interested in talking to. I think he said that your one of your shirts you had on caught his eye, and then he asked you what that was about, and then you started explaining what the shirt was. It probably was one of your earlier." Shirts that you had, but he was like he asked you about it, and then you was telling him about it. He's like, oh yeah, because I'm a personal development coach. I was telling him about that because I had just moved down to Florida,
Uh-huh.
and I had just joined the church not too long before that. And then he was like, oh, let me put you in contact with this guy. So he gave me your number. Then I reached out to you, and you told me a little bit about your story. I told you about my story, and then I was like, I got a podcast. I would love to have you on the podcast. And then it was history from there.
That's a fact, man. And again, I just love being able to tell those stories, because imagine if I'm going too fast that day, and I'm just like, hey man, I don't really got no time to talk. And then now this is the missing interaction. And then the interaction times that the people that were touched from our conversation on your pod, then now you coming on my pod. Those people are not inspired to come to Christ if we don't even connect those dots and we moving too fast. So I always just like to take the moments to let people know like where you are, be present where you are, communicate with the people around you, because it's not by coincidence that that person is right at the gas pump while you at the gas pump and y'all both see each other, but y'all not trying to make no eye contact. Go ahead and say hello. You never know. Spark up a conversation. That might be the network, the connection to help you do something, or just again turn into a friend, like a brotherhood like we have. So just wanted to put that on there, just to throw it out there, Aaron. So let's get into a little bit of background. What you saying, doing the personal development coaching as well as a boxing coach. What would you say is the part about coaching that you enjoy the most?
I enjoy helping people, so I enjoy seeing um the potential people have and finding ways to draw that out of them. Um, Not saying I didn't have that a lot growing up, but I could have had more of it. So
Yeah.
just coming from a background where I know I had more potential to do what I could have done. And, I have six brothers and one sister. We all have the potential to do so many things in life,
Yes.
but just having that mentor or that guidance, especially for the younger generation now, is something that pushed me and drove me. And it was easier for me to move into like the personal development coach space than
Yeah.
it is for like the boxing space. Cause we'll get into that, but it's just easier for me to kind of talk to somebody and try to give them the tools to build themselves up and work from a space of like anxiety, fears, depression, things that I've dealt with.
Yeah.
Um, it's easy for me to see that in other people and then try to give them the tools. Everything's not going to work, but as
Right.
long as you got certain tools in your toolbox, you could take that out. And so, yeah, that just being able to help people is something that really gravitates to me and my personality.
That's a beautiful thing. That shows the kind of heart that you have, that you're automatically trying to help other people. And I feel like that's like a common trait for followers of Christ. Like we automatically just had that pull in our heart. And I share that same similarity with you, like being able to help the youth. And to your point, our youth really needs the guidance. Like there's so many things right now that kids could go down the wrong path. They have the access to the world, man, right here on their phone, things that we wasn't really even thinking about. Like, man, we not thinking about that, but they now have those things on their mind. But now how do we put, like you said, resources or tools in place where they can know how to navigate those different situations? And the other thing that you said, I feel like is great, is that how you said you went through certain things, so then that allows you to now be able to help other people. So how important do you feel like that is, with knowing that you have that experience that you can relate to people? Because some people just can talk about things, but how does it make you different, that you like, no, I've been there. Like, how does that help you when you're having those coaching conversations with different young adults?
Well, that's something that I always talk about. And I went to college and everything. I studied psychology, but being book smart doesn't always do it. You could know how to memorize a book. You
Yeah.
can know how to memorize how to diagnose people. But
Mhm.
if you've never been in that situation, it's hard to really give them insight on how to overcome those things.
That's
So if you come to me and say I got bad finances, I'm trying to, get myself out of debt. Look, if you find a coach, tell me, because I that's I can't help you with that, but I dealt with anger, I dealt with anxiety, I
Yeah.
dealt with fears,
Yeah.
I dealt with low self-esteem. Those are things that I dealt with and I have overcome.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes by myself, I had to figure out how to do it. So I'm able to speak that and tell people how I did it. And again, everybody's different. That doesn't mean that it's a template that you're going to do exactly these steps and then you're going to be out of it. It's not that simple, because we could be in the same situation, but it affects us differently.
That's a fact.
Um, but so I tell everybody that I deal with that I can only help you with things that I've dealt with in my life. I can't really speak into things that I haven't dealt with. I might have the good words and make it sound good, and you feel good when we get off the call, but then we're gonna come back the next week or the next 2 weeks, and you're gonna have the same problem,
Right.
because it just sounds good. But I
Exactly.
feel like that is very important, not only to have some book smarts, some
Yeah.
type of knowledge, but to have went through that experience on your own, so you can kind of know what the person is going through.
Right.
You don't know exactly line for line what they're going through, but you have like a kind of grand scheme of things of what they're going through.
No, that's a fact, and I think that resonates a lot, especially with the youth. When you're talking and having those different conversations, like they know automatically, they can see bull from down the street, so they like, you telling me something that you ain't even been on. But it's like when you telling them, you like, no, like, when I talk with the kids and they talk about, I want to go D1, I'm like, okay, I can tell you how to get there. I can tell you everything that you're doing now that you're not doing. I could tell you and walk you through the whole thing. And then boom, now that's when the attention lock in. And now that's when we can really start planting those seeds. So that's really powerful that you had that. So also the other piece of coaching, you said that you do the boxing. So like I got a question for you, and you from Philly, so I want to know who's your favorite boxer of all time, or who do you think is the GOAT, like boxing wise?
See the GOAT. I'm going to go. Who's my favorite boxer of all time? And
Okay.
you know how they always be like, oh, people calling out names, but
Uh-huh.
Bernard Hopkins is my
Yeah.
dad cousin.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna say Bernard Hopkins is my
Okay.
favorite boxer of all time.
Uh-huh.
Um, Also, Gerald Nobles. That's my cousin too on my dad's
Okay.
side.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
Okay.
say they
Repping the family.
my favorite. But I like Roy Jones in his prime. Roy
Yeah.
Jones in his prime was nice. I like Mayweather, even though like a lot of people don't like what Mayweather is doing now, but his
Mhm.
defense is crazy.
Pepper.
Um, and again, people watch Mayweather fights just to see him lose. Like I was like, I don't never want to see him lose, but I at least want to see him hit the ground
Yeah. Yeah.
once.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but his defense is crazy. So Mayweather and Canelo is coming up. And well, he's kind of at the top right now. So
Uh-huh.
I'm not real big in boxing,
Uh-huh.
but if I had to name some people, those are the people that I name. And a caveat to that is I grew up taking karate. So I have a black belt in karate.
Okay. You official.
I teach boxing now because I went from karate to football to MMA, and
Uh-huh.
then I just hit 40. So I'm like, I'm not trying to get slammed. I'm not trying to stop a takedown. So I'm strictly boxing now. Like I'm not teaching you how to shoot. Like I'm not going on the ground for nothing.
None of
Like
that.
we going on the ground like that. So I,
Uh-huh.
I hit 40. I'm like, I'm not trying to do all the slamming and wrestling. So boxing is where I'm at now.
Well, man, that's a fact. Cause look, as you get older, man, your body don't recoup the way it used to, man. You be like,
It definitely
stuff
don't.
ain't feeling right. And now look, you mess around, slam me now, man. I'm gonna take these gloves off. We're gonna fight for real. Like, hold on, don't slam me that hard. Like, hold on, we are just this recreation. This recreation.
Yeah.
So nah, that's a fact. So then now, before we go into like our four core questions, and it's probably to get closer to Christ, I got one more question for you. So being that you're doing a personal development, you're coaching, you're talking a lot to the youth, from your perspective, like what advice would you give the 16-year-old or 18-year-old version of yourself?
Uh, so I had this question before, but I think it was like the 20-year-old version of myself. But I would say back then I held a lot of grudges. So that was the way I fueled myself through a lot of the things that I did.
Mm-hmm.
I was bent on proving people wrong. So I took whatever somebody said and I held it as a grudge and I used that to fuel me forward. Um, but I would say learn how to take constructive criticism
Mm-hmm.
and just stay determined. So
Yeah.
again, I was very angry back then. So everything that was said to me, I turned it into something negative in order to push me forward to do what I wanted to do. So I needed that fuel, but it also made me very angry at a young age. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say learn how to take constructive criticism, and move forward and stay determined.
Wow, that to me, like even just hearing you take that moment to pause and really reflect on that and hear that, a lot of people oftentimes won't answer that with full transparency, but just hearing that we all go through different things. We all have things, especially when we were growing up into where we are today. And that's an opportunity for us to be able to not only help other people, what you're doing as a coach, but then also take that moment to give that reflection back to God, like, yo, look at where God brought me from to where you 16 to now 40. It's night and day. And I'm also helping the younger Aaron's that I'm coming across every single day that's coming in the boxing gym, that's coming into one-on-ones or group session as a personal development coach. Like it's just a full circle moment. I love hearing that. And I share the same thing as well. Like growing up playing sports, man, you have a bad mentality. You lose, you might not have the same. You're like, oh, well, I'm mad. Sportsmanship. Parents got to tell you, all right, come on, go shake hands, go. But it's like again, you have God allows us to go through those moments so then we can realize it. So then now we can be inspiration for other people. So that's super dope to hear that, and I appreciate that transparency. So Going into the four core questions, the first question I want to ask you is, why did you give your life to Christ?
Um, so I've been in church all my life since I was younger, in and out of church, different churches. And when I was still in Philadelphia, I would be what they call a lukewarm Christian. So
Mm,
I felt like that I was, Christian. I'm going to church every Sunday
mm,
and praying. I feel like I had a very strong prayer life. To be honest, in Philadelphia, a lot went on. We'll get into that later. But uh, I felt like I'm sorry. I drew a blank. What was the
you
question?
good about why you give your life to Christ. You were saying,
Okay.
yeah,
So at the end of the day, no matter how many times I turned my back on God, he's always there when you turn back around. And
that's
it showed up for me in so many aspects of my life. When I was down and out, when my son went through cancer,
mm,
when I lost my job, all
mm,
those things, I could always fall back on my faith in God. And so ultimately, from a lukewarm Christian, by the time we got down to Florida, where we live now in Tallahassee, I finally got baptized,
wow,
and I'm all in it, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah,
So I gave my life over to Christ because He's always there.
yeah.
And that's something that I try to tell my boys. I try to tell everybody, like, no matter how many times you turn your back, God is still there when you turn back around and come back to Him. You can repent and come back to Him. And that's why ultimately I gave my life over to Christ.
Man, that's super powerful to hear that, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get to a lot of the other stuff that you're talking about. But just like you said, we go through so many different things in life, and there's not many people, even like, man, you think about if you let down your wife, your kids, your employer, like you could turn back around and they could be gone. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like they could be gone, but it's like you said, we could go out, do whatever we want to do. Essentially, that's cheating on God. We following other gods, we doing other stuff, we prioritizing other things before Him. But then God still, when you turn around, He like, come on, I'm here. Like, come on, I knew you was gonna come back. I'm right here waiting on you. When you ready, come on back. And like just even again, I know that already, but just hearing you say that, that just brings that back up of just how good God is and His love for us. So that's real. That's definitely real. So then now, from how do you feel like Christ inspires you on a daily in your life?
I look at everything, and I know it says that God doesn't test us. God doesn't tempt us
Correct.
in ways that he's not out there to get us and catch us,
Correct.
oh, you slipping, you had negative thoughts. But I
Right.
look at everything as a test
Yeah.
um of my faith. When I get cut off, even the smallest things, my kids
Yeah.
talk back. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what would God do? What would Jesus do? In that moment, I know it sounds cliche, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to, fly off the handle every single time something gets under my skin. I try to stay calm. I try to stay collected. Think of everything from different perspectives. So,
Right.
one, I look at everything as a test, and two, I look at everything as it's going to turn into a positive, no matter what it is.
That's a fact.
Things could always be so much worse. I got a flat tire. I still got three good tires. I only got one donut. If two
Yeah.
tires went out, then
Right.
then I'm
Right.
done. So, I try to find a positive in every single thing, and just know that I'm blessed because I can still find a positive in every single thing that I can perceive as a negative.
And that's real. And like, and even just listening to you say that, I think about that. My brother always says like rich in spirit. Like 'cause some people, a lot of people want to be rich, like money, monetary, or just things around them, a big house, nice cars, and all the clothes and all that stuff. But to be rich in spirit is like, to me, what I'm hearing you saying, because it's like, even all, regardless of what's going around me, I'm rich in my spirit. So I could get a flat, and I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm glad I still got AAA. I'm glad I got somebody that I can call to come pick me up. Or, hey, you know what? I'm glad when I call my boss, hey, I'm running a little behind. Oh, it's all right, Aaron, take your time. Kourtney, go ahead and come in when you come in. Like, that is to me like why I remember at a young age, my older brother told me, he told me this word, he said, be optimistic, not pessimistic. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, but then he was breaking it down to me. And like to your point, and when you have that optimistic mindset, it allows us to go through certain things, but the way that you look at it is completely different. Like, it's not going to affect you because to your point, it's all going to come together. So like, how do you feel like you got to that point where you're able to look at situations and just be like, yo, it's all gonna be good? Like, how do you feel like you got to that point in your life?
Um, I'm I'm gonna try to get through this without crying.
Yeah.
So I touched on it. My oldest son, from my first marriage, had cancer.
Hmm.
Being in the hospital with him for a year, going through chemo and radiation,
Hmm.
and seeing the families that didn't walk out of there with their children.
Hmm.
Um, Laying there and him waking up the next day
Yeah.
while you come out of the hospital and people complaining, I got cut off, I don't have enough money to get the newest Jordans.
Yeah.
So we complain, we focus so much on the small things in life where we went through a time in our lives where I just want my son to wake up after
Mm.
chemo. I
Mm.
just want to make sure that he's taking his next breath, type
Yeah.
of situation where I feel like sometimes I had a hard life growing up,
Yeah.
going through my family situation, but then going what he went through,
Yeah.
only being 4
Mm.
and going through that. And it's like, that's nothing. So I can be optimistic that I don't have $20,000 in the bank, but I
Yeah.
got $1,000, I got $100, I got something.
Yes.
People get a raise and they're like, oh, I only got 50-cent raise. Well, it's more than what you
What you
had
had.
before you got the raise.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that put a lot of things in perspective for me where I could be more optimistic about a lot of things where, things may be bad, but it could be so much worse.
Yes. No, that's man, that's so real. And just to hear that, that's again gonna resonate with so many people. That's gonna inspire them to change their outlook. And we talked about that probably like 2 weeks ago, where I went to men's Bible study at my church, and he was talking about that's why God tells us to renew our mind daily, to change the way that we think about things. Because you could go through the same exact thing, but if your mind is renewed, you looking at it completely different. And if especially if it's renewed on God and on his word and on his promises that he has for us, now you really thinking differently. But we also have the choice. God gives us a choice. Do you want to renew it by the music that you listen to that may not be edifying, the shows that you watching that might not be edifying, the friends that you have that might not be edifying? So you have to pick and choose. We have to pick and choose how we renew our mind. And so just hearing what you said, like that brought me back to that moment where we were talking about that in Bible study. It's so important for us to renew our mind daily. So even going through that situation for yourself, what do you feel like you learned beyond that, like being grateful for everything that you have around you? What do you feel like is something else that you took from that situation that you carry with you today?
Just staying strong in your faith and really that we as men are the leader.
Mm.
We lead our house, and in those moments where everything feels like it's falling down, as long as you look strong on the outside and pray on the inside,
Mm.
it gives other people hope. All
Yeah.
right, everybody else is falling down and fall, everything's seem to be burning down around you, but
Yeah.
he's staying strong.
Yes.
And that's going to give me the faith and the hope to know that everything's going to be all right, because the leader, the head of the household, the head of the family is not crumbling. And
Yeah.
I can feel safe to crumble in this time. And
Yeah.
I can feel safe to, be weak in this moment because the head of the household is strong.
Strong.
So even though, on the inside, I'm falling apart, I'm praying, I'm having faith, but on the outside, it's like, all right, he good. It's
Yeah,
another round of chemo. It's another
yeah,
round of radiation. He's
yeah,
strong. He's a fighter. He's a fighter like our whole family. You know,
yeah,
we fight
yeah.
on the outside and on the inside. So he
Fact.
good. We're gonna trust in the doctors. The doctors say they're gonna go with this plan. You know, we're gonna trust God that He gave us the doctors that's gonna have our son be able to stay with us, and we're gonna trust God that He picked us as the parents that's gonna raise him to be a strong young man. So
That's a fact.
um, you know, just knowing that, and in today's culture, a lot of people don't like to hear like the man is the lead, the head.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, I'm not submitting to nobody. And it's not the submission that we're thinking about,
Hmm.
but just being able to turn and have somebody that is strong enough to push through all of the muddy water and guide you through is something that I learned from that.
No, man, and that's true, and even more so to the point that you referred to in regards to like having a leader. Same in our household. Like I'm following God. God is leading me. And then I got to make sure I'm leading the family. And the only way that I'm able to properly lead is by submitting to God. My wife got to submit as well, and because I'm the leader, she got to submit to me. But also, I'm submitting to God. She's submitting to God. We submitting to each other. So it's like, again, that's what we talk about with the renewed mind. If you live in the world, people who in the world, they're not even going to understand the word submission because the devil has perversed that word where women think like, I'm not submitting, or even men submitting to God. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to get to that point where we understand what that really means, really break down the word, really understand what God says when he asks us to submit under him, really to do the things that he called us to do. So no, man, that's powerful that you in that situation, you're being a leader, you're being strong, but also knowing, again, being transparent, the vulnerability that you're showing, like, yo, you know what, I'm breaking down inside, everything going down, but I know that I'm praying inside. So I'm going to God. You might not cry to your wife, to your kids, or let them see that, but you like, you know what, I'm going to definitely cry to God. I'm gonna definitely pray to him, and he gonna hear me because you like, okay, he the one that's gonna really take care of everything that I got going on. So that's beautiful, man. I love to hear that. So what about, as far as, what advice would you have for somebody who's on the fence about giving their life to Christ?
Um, I would say start off with uh, a daily devotional,
Mhm.
and pray to God, and just really read the Bible.
Yeah,
And don't they say, you know, you could go to church, the preacher can preach, the pastor can do his thing,
yeah,
but we still have to understand the word for ourselves.
that's a
So we still have to come home, read back over that lesson, read back over what he preached. So get into the Bible, read the Bible. I say read the Bible for yourself and have a prayer life. Start a prayer life, start a devotional,
yeah,
and you'll see how your life starts to change. You'll see how things start to come together, and it'll give you a new perspective on life. Like you said, renewing your mind. When you do that every single day, you go at the beginning of the day, you start your day off with a new mindset, not the same mindset that you went to sleep with, and the same mindset that you had for years that we build up in our on our own.
yeah,
So I would say somebody that's on the fence, just start to read the Bible. Just
yeah,
open the Bible, let it guide you. So don't go read and pick a verse that you heard all the time. Just open it and read from there.
yeah,
And start a little devotional. You could download the app on your phone. They have devotionals on there. If you need a prayer light devotional, learn how to love, learn how to pray, learn how to fast. All those things are in there,
yeah,
and there are devotionals that you can take. It reads the Bible to you if you're not good at reading, or if you don't want to read, if you don't have the time to read, you
yeah.
really don't have an excuse. Nobody has an excuse. So start to read it for yourself. Don't take anybody else's word for it. Read it for yourself and start a prayer life for yourself and see how your life starts to change.
Wow, that's powerful. And I see that goes back to you being a coach, because most people, when I ask them that question, they give the advice. You went right to, hey, I'm gonna give you some practical steps. Here's some best practices that you could do. Read the Bible, and then hey, get your prayer life and giving them those steps. And that's gonna be helpful for some people, because some people they can hear it, but what can I do? And you gave them the practical steps that they can lay out and take those steps and go from there. And again, get that relationship that you're talking about. And I know we're winding down a little bit on time, but I also just want to take time to hear what's your favorite Bible verse and why?
My favorite Bible verse is Isaiah 54:17.
Mhm.
And that's just the Bible verse that we had the whole time that my son was going through chemo.
Mhm.
No weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I know a lot of verses are taken out of context,
Mhm.
but it was so many things going on in our lives,
Mhm.
and like no weapon, nothing, finances. He started going through chemo. I lost my job. I was
Mhm.
unemployed.
Mhm.
But ultimately that allowed me to be home. So I was home the whole year that he was going through chemo. And the moment that he ended chemo and he was cleared,
Mhm.
a job opened back up at the same job, and it was for more money.
Come on.
And I was able to get back on. So I lost my job. He went through chemo. I got hurt. I couldn't fight anymore.
Mhm.
Um, then I lost my job, and then he went through a year of chemo. The moment that he got cleared, I ended up getting another kickboxing match, and I ended up getting my job back, and everything was, I mean, it wasn't golden. I'm still hurt from it, but you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
he was healed. I was able to be home full
Yeah.
time,
Amen.
collecting unemployment. Before that time, I had never collected unemployment, so I didn't know how it worked.
Yeah.
But it worked out for me and my family. So
Yeah.
Isaiah 54:17, no weapon formed against me so prosper, is a Bible verse that I hold on to, a Bible verse that I recite often. And
Mhm.
again, it can often be taken out of context, but I apply it to that situation in every situation that I may possibly go through. Not situations that I may put myself in, like
Right. That's the kind.
max out my credit card and I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
pay
yeah.
that bill.
Right.
I
No
wake up, no
weapon formed
weapon formed
against me.
against
No
me.
weapon formed. Right. I know exactly me because sometimes people be like, "Oh man," like you said, like you max out your credit card. No weapon formed against me. God, pay for this bill. No, no, no. Faith
Yeah.
without works is dead. You got to do your part. No, that's a fact, man. I'm so happy to hear that because as you're telling me this, and I didn't even know this about your son and you guys going through these trials, and just to hear that victory, man, that's just another just hallelujah moment. Like, come on, God, like just glory to God that your son is healthy. All the things that you talked about in that whole process, that whole testimony, yo, you like sometimes we think we see what God doing, but we really don't. Now your faith is stronger. Your son, your wife, your kids, everybody that's around you, all your family. Like some people could have doubted in their mind, but then now they like, oh, you seeing him strong? He's strong, even though like how you said it's take you down the inside, but you staying strong in your faith. How does that help everybody else that's around you? That's powerful. And I just love to hear that, man, giving me chills. Like, I just love hearing God and the testimonies because God is blessing people every single day. Even the small things that we overlooking all the time, man, God is good. So, man, look, we got a couple minutes left. Is there anything else you want to say to people before we wrap it up? Any other inspiration? You know, hit them with so much, but I want to see if you got anything else, man.
Hey, I just want to thank you for having me on here. I thank God for allowing us to meet virtually over the phone, and just be able to speak into each other's lives the way that we have. I'm glad that you started your podcast. Mine fell off by the wayside. I had so many other things going on, but I'm glad that yours is going strong and that you're doing the things that you're doing. You're inspiring people. I'm glad your clothing line is taking off. I, continue to pray for you and your family.
Will do.
And again, if anybody's on the fence, just start off small. Don't try to jump in the deep end.
Yeah.
You can look at Kourtney and see how he's living, and God is blessing him and the things that he's doing. And you know, don't be envious. I would say look at that and know that it's because he is chasing after God.
Come
And
on.
we can have the same things as long as we're chasing after God and have a pure heart. We're sinful fallen creatures. This. I don't know how much time we got left,
You got
but
like
this.
you got 60 seconds. If you could be 30, and then we could close it out in 30. So you got
All
60
right, no. We're simple fallen creatures. So we're not perfect. We'll never be perfect. Trust in God, hold on to God, chase God. He's there with open arms.
That's a fact, man. Look, I appreciate you too as well. Likewise, thankful that you came on here, man. We're gonna continue to keep connecting and growing in our brotherhood. To everybody that's on here, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. You never know who needs this inspiration. Check out my man on Facebook, man. If y'all looking for personal development or boxing in the Philly area or even virtual, he gonna be there for you for a personal development coach. All right, man. We'll holla at y'all. Peace.